What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today, man, we're going to talk about Diontae Johnson and the trade. Did the Panthers lose the trade? It really. They didn't necessarily lose the trade because the chances of Diontae Johnson coming back were going to be slim to none. On top of that, you got to look at two factors. First one is, does Diontae Johnson fit the scheme of what Dave wants to do? The answer to that is no, right? That's not going to fit the scheme. The second thing is, if you go back to last week when Andy Dalton was starting and there was a play where Diontae Johnson kind of gave up on the route, Andy Dalton basically avoided him every play after that where Diontae Johnson was open. The film says it, right? So those two things alone kind of told you that Diontae Johnson wasn't going to be a Panther long term. Now, as far as the trade, I believe the Panthers had to pay a little bit of that contract. They gave up a sixth and Diontae Johnson for the Ravens' fifth. Now, a lot of people are like, well, the Panthers, once again, they got screwed and they got taken advantage of. They got fleeced. Yes and no, and here's why. I'm sure if there was a better deal than a fifth round pick for Diontae Johnson, the Panthers would have taken it, right? you would hope that the Panthers would take a better deal than getting a fifth round for Diontae Johnson. But when it's all said and done, most likely that's all that was there, and the reason is, after this year he was going to walk, and teams knew that, so they're not going to go above and beyond when they don't have to. Now, the other part to look at is, how did we get Diontae Johnson? Well, we gave up Diontae Jackson to get him, right? The defensive back who's now in the Steelers. And this is where it gets interesting. You see Diontae Jackson balling out, and you're like, okay, why did we exchange these guys? And once again, it's another Panther who's balling out who left Carolina, right? So this whole Diontae Johnson thing, to me, is like it's such a small thing on such a bigger scale, because it shows you, we're not only having problems on the offensive side as far as trading pieces away and then they take off and go kill another team. It's also defensively, right? The Commanders' defense, whether Luvu wanted to be here or not, that's beside the point. Chin's doing his thing over there too. That's now three guys that we had on the team last year: Chin, Luvu, Diontae Jackson. So you could say Canales, you could say Tepper, you could say Avero. It's the whole organization, right? So, I don't know. It's hard to say on what needs to happen, right? Because there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot, because if you look at the team now, I think it's going to be a completely different team next year. I think we're probably going to trade at some point, and hopefully we do that before preseason starts next year, right? And hopefully we actually bring in some playmakers. I thought we were on defense, but when I go back and I look at it, Josie Jewell, he's definitely up there in age. Clowney, he's definitely up there in age. DJ Wanham's coming off the injury. I'm like, what are we doing here? Then you bring in the safeties who had a year or two of starting, not a lot, which is why we got them for cheap. The Panthers at some point are going to have to just basically rebuild that whole defense, right? They're just going to have to. I mean, there's not really a bright spot other than really Trevin Wallace, I guess, even though he's still young, and Derek Brown. Other than that, we don't have really a bright spot on this team. Antonio, welcome to the channel, my man. You think we are working on trades, and also you think we're going to get players in return. I think we are working on trades, and I think we're going to get, fingers crossed, I think we'll get a better outcome than just a fifth round pick in the next couple weeks, or week and a half, give or take. I would like to think that anyway. And the reason I say that is, I think Diontae Johnson, that was the best they could do, right? So they just moved him, got him out of the roster, got him, out of the locker room. That's taken care of, right? Now there's Adam Thielen. Now there's Clowney. Now there's, potentially J.C. Horn, Chuba Hubbard. Those are names that are being thrown around. And I think we're going to get more in return, so we're kind of waiting to see what we do with those. What's going on, Chuck? So it's going to be interesting to see who's still on this team come, the trade deadline. I think that's November 5th. Let me check on that real quick. But I want to say that is November 5th. Let's see. The trade deadline is November 5th. So the trade deadline is this Tuesday coming up. So, we have this week, and then we go to Germany. And the Germany game is going to be interesting because there's a good chance this team looks different. Now, what do I hope the Panthers get? Honestly, I really hope it's just draft capital, to be honest, because we keep bringing in guys, and they're not really making an impact. Excuse me. I guess Mike Jackson, he's done his thing at the DB position, but other than that, I mean, I don't know how many transactions they made from training camp to the first week where we didn't even know who our starting edge rusher was going to be. They released Caleb on 5 days, maybe less before the first game. So I really hope we stop trying to bring in guys off, a roster, and we try and develop some guys, because the draft, they did pretty good on the draft, to be honest. Trevin Wallace, he's struggling a little bit, but as you guys know, the Panthers, they reached for him to begin with, and they obviously did not expect him to start. But that's what happens when Shaq and Josie Jewell go down. So Trevin Wallace has been all right. Shaw Smith-Wade is the big kind of question mark, because you look at him and you're like, oh, he's a slot corner. But then you find out he didn't play slot, right, in the corner position in college. So now he has to completely learn that position. So he's definitely going through some rough patches. Brooks, we still haven't seen yet, which is a little bit, I could say scary. But if that's Dave's dream guy, if that's who Dave wanted, Dave probably isn't going to risk playing him, considering how the Panthers are doing, right? I mean, at what, 1-7? Jeez, 1-7's bad. But at 1-7, there's really no point in playing Brooks, right? And so you got Brooks, you got Shaw Smith-Wade, you got Wallace, and then you got Sanders, Jatavion Sanders. He's been pretty good. He's not the most physical tight end, but as far as pass catching, he's been pretty good. They traded the 7th round pick to get, I think, Mike Jackson. So overall, I was actually impressed with the Panthers drafting. I thought they reached on a couple of guys, but that could definitely pan out. So when it's all said and done, I hope we don't trade and try and get more players. I hope we trade and just get draft capital.